Welcome to I'm Not a Fan Unless I Have a Podcast. I'm John Hanford, and today's episode, we've got a guy that we know from Instagram. A lot of us Gizzheads do. On Instagram, he's Boogieman Sam, and he's been putting together a really cool fucking project. And we discussed this, but kind of in a similar. It was based on a similar motivation that I had to start this podcast that he's had to undertake this bootleg collection concept. You know, just taking little clips of all. If you haven't checked it out, go to his Instagram, Boogieman Sam Official, and ask him for a link to download the volume 1 of the bootleg collection, because it's cool as shit what he did. He took a whole bunch of live recordings that people sent him, a whole bunch of different people's live recordings from the last UK and Europe tour of 2019, and he's organized them into individual shows from each of the stops on the tour, and that is such a cool idea to me. That of course I got the download code from it, from him about a month ago when he announced it first, and he sent me the link, and he was like, "Hey man, love what you're doing with the podcast," and I was just like, "Oh shit, yeah, this is very much like a meeting of the minds in a way," and so I was like, yeah, I'll promote the fuck out of that once I get back from going insane, and and I was just thinking like, wait, I should just fucking have this guy on, because like and you never know, like it seems that a lot of people like to keep their online personas separate from their actual who they are in real life, and I get that. I respect people's privacy, so I wasn't sure if he was one of those kinds of people. Turns out he's fucking down with whatever, and I still respect boundaries. But he's it was just such a cool conversation that we finally had. Just weeks of just me just sitting on this bootleg collection that I still haven't fully listened to. I've been dealing with other shit, but it's just such a cool concept, and he explained, his thought behind it, what he's learned from it, and what there might be in the future. And plus that on top of that, we talk a lot about Giz and just our own experiences as people who love music and, are going through life. This is just a really fun conversation. And, Gotta give the UK a shout out, especially up in Scotland. That's where Earl is, and it's just such a. I just love that I'm able to talk with people from all over the world and have these really fun, cerebral, musical conversations that in a lot of times I can't have in real life. Some of my friends love music. Some of my friends really could take it or leave it, and that's to each their own. But and obviously we know that not enough of my friends like Giz, which is why I have this podcast. And so I just love that I'm able to talk with people all over the world. It really expands my own consciousness, and I don't know, I think it reinforces a lot of my own spirituality, and just that like we're all, if we all love the same thing, we will find each other in one way or another. And I just think that's a very cool thing. Giz is a very unifying band, and I'm forever grateful for that. Let's just, and we do acknowledge in this episode that King Gizzard is basically a cult. And it's full of a lot of really nice people, but what cult isn't? And so what I'm saying is, like, we should be cognizant of this, and also just make sure that, never does this become a death cult. Just a little thing that I'm that's, just been on my paranoid mind. I've been smoking a lot of weed, trying to cut back, trying to be less paranoid and just enjoy my fucking sober life. It's hard because it's, fucking Great Depression 2.0 and the pandemic. So anyway, before we get all doom and gloom here, let's get right into this episode. Here is Earl, aka Boogieman Sam. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, so
happy to be here.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you for being here. It's I like once you released these the Bootleg Collection Volume 1, I was like, shit, I got to talk to this guy. Unfortunately, it was like just as I was like kind of about to snap mentally, so I was like, this will have to be in the back burner for a little bit.
Yeah, man, it gives you some time to listen to it as well,
Yeah, which unfortunately I've only been able to listen to like the first 2 shows on it. I still haven't transferred all of it over to my Spotify playlist yet. But I really love the concept of it, and I love the commentary that you provided in the download. So I guess what was, just to start, what was your thinking in getting that project going?
Well, it was, oddly enough, believe it or not, it was thanks to Bob Dylan. I'm a big Bob Dylan fan, and every year him or his estate or his company or whatever release the bootleg series, and it's been going on for years. Sometimes it's a gig here or there, or it's a collection of gigs. And last year they released Live 1975. I think it was 14 or 15 CDs, and it was a thick box,
Oh yeah.
And I think that just got in my head, and it was a dream I had. I had this dream where I had this thick box of, it was the Europe 2019 tour of King Gizzard. It's a really colourful box. It was nice. Each CD was just like I've made it on the actual release. Each one was the poster for the show, just like what Jason did with the 3 live albums for the Bushfire release. So I had all these CDs in this dream, and then I think I just woke up the next day and remembered it and drove to work thinking about it the whole way there. I've got about a 30-minute commute, thinking about it all day, and I was just thinking, I wonder how much stuff is actually online that I could download and organize. And that was basically it. And then I started it from there, and straight away it just took off. I mean, I posted about it on Reddit before I'd even done anything. I posted about it on Reddit, and so many replies, people sending me so many links and footage and audio. It was so good. It came together so well, man. We're missing a lot of stuff, but I think it came together really well. Worked out quite well.
I mean, I was really impressed with how much you're able to sort, because like at first, before I knew who the Boogieman Sam identity was, I thought the Boogieman Sam was really just the the account for the sound guy. Turns out he's on a different account, which I then decided to follow. But like it was so cool to like see all the love that you put into this, because it seemed as if you were honestly like just basically in cahoots with the band, and just like like you said like you weren't able to get all the songs for every concert, and some of them were just snippets, but I was just like, wow, so maybe they don't record all the shows. I'm an idiot. But
that's it. Yeah, it's I said it the whole time. It was basically by Gizzheads for Gizzheads, because I couldn't have done it myself. I went to 3 of the shows on the tour, which is a very small portion of it, obviously. But we're quite lucky that so many people go to these shows and record them. Mm-hmm. That was the thing that I quite liked. Was, take the London for example. I had multiple people sending me their recordings, so I had a choice to go through and find the best ones to put on the collection, if you know what I mean. Like someone sent me, I think it was about a 20-minute video of, it was the Mindfuzz medley and Crumbling Castle from London.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent quality, excellent footage, but I just had to rip the audio, whereas someone else has sent me poor quality audio, so it was just trying to find the best of each one, but it's all done within 2 or 3 months. So, I guess if I'd kept at it, I could have maybe found other sources. There's other people out there, I'm sure, with some recordings But I just want to get it out there and make a start.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love what I just love that project. I mean, because it reminds me like a lot of just like just kind of how this podcast all came together. I was just like, fuck, I can't get on stage to do stand-up comedy anymore. Like, and my friends will not tolerate me talking about King Gizzard anymore. Like, I
No
we got to
feeling, man.
combine. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I like I've loved all the conversations that I've had on here. So many different perspectives on
yeah,
all sorts of items that are Giz related. And then it's just really cool. It's kind of a breath of fresh air when I hear of a project like yours where it's it's also done like out of love and just like wanting to share stuff with the whole fan base.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
The way I
I
sort of looked at it was that it was sort of inevitable that someone was going to do it, and basically it was just getting in there and making it a thing,
yeah,
But it's really tough though to you know you want to put your voice out there and get these recordings, but that's tough, beginning, Now
yeah,
that, say, I don't know, when we get to 5 volumes and I don't know, there's thousands of people following it, no, it's going to happen, but people then might send me stuff from London 2019, which I've already released, so it's just that trying to get everything before you release it is quite tough, but just try and do what we can.
yeah. I do love it though. Like as there, well, and this is just me spitballing here. But just an idea popped into my head. Like somebody could probably make like a video, like doing some kind of digital like video art, like visuals similar to how Galia does on the shows, like they could do a video to the actual bootleg collection. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just feel like that's a spin-off project that's inevitable for some visual artist that's a fan.
100%, 100%. I mean, it's the whole thing was that I was just trying to do it just for the love of the music of the band, for the fans, by the fans, for the fans. So if anyone wants to take the footage, wherever the audio, take it. I don't own it. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
main thing. That's the main thing. Do what you want.
yeah. So and you mentioned that Dylan inspired you with the with that 15 volume or 15
Yeah,
CD. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's 15 volumes. Um, I so before before you decided to pursue this project, like have you ever personally been a bootleg recorder, or do you have much
no,
experience with that? Or
not at all, not at all. It's absolutely everything about it was new to me, which it was a bit scary, but I quite liked. Everything about it from the simply, like say, I took a video and I take the audio from it. I don't have a clue how to do that, so I've sort of taught myself to do that. Same with YouTube. I've got no experience with YouTube whatsoever, other than watching videos. But I had to work out how the hell do you put. I know it probably sounds really stupid and easy to some people. How do you put audio and get album art, in a clip and then put that on YouTube? I had to work all that out, which I have done. So I've learned quite a lot from it.
Mhm.
It took quite a while, obviously, but yeah, it's just bootlegging's new to me. It's not something that I've ever done simply because I don't have the resource. I don't know how you go and record these things. You get people like Mystery Jack who's got his own gear and he takes it to every show.
I
He knows
mean,
what he's doing.
that guy, I mean, he's a goddamn
He's
treasure.
a blessing, yeah, man. Yeah,
I mean, just like I remember last year he did the I mean he had a few recordings, but he did the Milwaukee gig and the DC gig, I think. That were, I mean, the Milwaukee one for sure I know he did. And
mm-hmm.
that one was just so cool because you got to hear Cookie sing live for the first time in
Oh
forever.
man,
And
yeah.
yeah. So I guess of the since I guess volume one of the bootlegs was the UK Euro tour.
Mm.
What's in store for the other volumes? Is that going to be different tours?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of ideas. Like I say, I've been trying to sort of build an archive of live recordings. So I've I've got quite a lot of stuff ranging right from when they were beginning. I've got sort of pre-King Gizzard bands and stuff as well. So I was thinking maybe at some point I'd like to get something like all their pre-King Gizzard projects. I don't know how
Oh
many
yeah.
there were, put them together as a volume, you know. Stuff, you know, any random tours. The Mexico tours, there's quite a lot of stuff about that I'd like to put on. Um, I've mainly found a lot of stuff about sort of Mindfuzz 2015 in America.
Mhm.
That's probably going to be two. But I'd also, you know, maybe a Gizfest collection, every fucking show from that, you know, work out something. I've got a couple of ideas, but like I say, it's just a case of trying to get as much as I can. And, you know, if I've got, there's 5 shows in a row, that could maybe be a volume. The problem we have is that obviously the band are bigger now than they've ever been. They're just getting massive. And
Yeah.
there were more recordings from last year, I think, than there's been in the past, you know, 8 years of the band or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a case of there's a lot more recordings now than there were from 2015, 2014, you know. So there's not as much from back then that I can put together. That's the problem. So that's why I'm not in any rush to release anything, you know.
Oh yeah.
Volume 2 will be out by the end of the year, but it's just a case to take my time and make sure and get stuff organized.
I think that's a good approach. You know, like,
Yeah,
I mean, because Giz is going to be putting out a new album before then,
yeah,
so that should have people, you know, held over pretty good. Um,
I'd hope so. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've absolutely loved each of the new singles that they've dropped.
Yeah.
You know, for the new album. What's been your take on it?
Well, Honey was first, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It took me a few listens to get into Honey, but then when I did, I thought it was really, really good. And Some of Us, I absolutely love. That's probably my favourite of them all so far. Straws
Yeah.
again is I'm taking my time to get into it. I've only listened to it maybe 5 or 6 times so far, but with each listen, I'm liking it more and more. The video is so fucking good, man. But yeah, I'm excited for what they actually do with the full album.
Yeah. I mean, Straws in the Wind is like that. I loved it instantaneously, or I guess like the first, my first listen through, I was like, okay, I think this might be my favorite Ambrose song, but I
Okay.
can't be sure, so I have to, you know, continue listening, and then it just hammered that point home even more.
Yeah,
So,
that's
um,
good.
but you know, at first I was like, this is a little weird. Like, why is it going directly into Ambrose singing? But obviously, whatever track comes before that, we'll find out. It'll make sense.
Yeah,
But it's yeah, I just loved it. It like Straws in the Wind for me. Just at this juncture in time, it seemed incredibly relevant.
okay.
Because I don't know if you've I don't know if you've watched the new Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, but
No.
it's basically talking about everything that Straws in the Wind is talking about,
Oh,
and
really?
it's with a lot of very like eerily similar imagery too to the video.
Is there someone with a leaf blower in their face?
Not the leaf blower, but but just like the setting where CGI Ambrose is
Oh, man.
breakdancing, they've got
Yeah.
a very similar piece of imagery in this new documentary that dropped
Huh.
like a week ago. So it's very, I don't know, it feels serendipitous, and yeah, it's really just sort of hit me on a certain level.
Oh, nice. What was it called again?
It's called The Social Dilemma, and it's a completely terrifying documentary. It's about how, like, you know, social media has pretty much become designed to scare everybody,
Yeah.
and that's the business model. And here's how destructive that might be in itself. And the irony is that, like, here we are watching that on Netflix for our entertainment. It's just like, here's your
Yeah.
demise being fed right back to you. So yeah, that irony was not lost on me at all.
That's great. I have to check it out, man. I've got so much to catch up on. Like I say,
Yeah.
I've barely touched what I've been doing with the bootleg collection recently. I've just not had a chance. But like I say, there's no real rush, you know. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, do you find that, like, when you, like, after you've devoted a whole bunch of time to a project and then you take some time off and then you come back to it later, like, you find that, like, that's exactly what you needed for it?
I think so, yeah. Because like I say, the first one, I think spent basically all April, maybe and half of May this year. It was just like non-stop. And then when I released it, that was sort of it. I sort of washed my hands of it in a way. I mean, I had so many people messaging me for it. And obviously, I sent it to them. But I just take a break, you know. And then recently, when I started getting back into it was a bit strange because I'd sort of forgotten what all that I'd learned. You know, it was all new to me. So yeah, the break was good. It's worth having a break, but I'm finding it a bit hard to get back into the swing of things just now. But it'll come to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just good never to, to like not force anything
Yeah,
to happen. Especially any sort of endeavor like that, it does require a lot of creativity, especially if you're going to be giving good commentary on, on the shows themselves.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get that completely.
yeah.
So how did you get into Giz in the first place? Like that's a question I ask everybody, and it's always fascinating to me.
Well, I've always been a big fan of psychedelic music, really. I, mainly like fuzzy psych. Really, I just love a nice fuzzy tone, you know. And
Yeah.
I remember it was actually an NME review of "I'm in Your Mind Fuzz." And it's just the name combination, just with the word fuzz, really. "I'm in Your Mind Fuzz," King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Turned it on, and there's that, 4 clicks of the sticks, and that was the change for me, you know. From there, it just sort of took off. It wasn't really until I heard Gamma Knife that I really got into them. Like that was the major turning point for me.
Yeah, that was definitely my turning point into like getting more into their like actual like hard rock psych
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um, like I was talking with a guy a couple episodes ago about how like somehow my first time listening to Nonagon Infinity, I didn't realize that the whole album was an infinite loop. I just figured like
Okay.
all the songs just bled into each other because that's what King Gizzard does. But
Yeah.
Gamma Knife was the only song on that album that really spoke to me initially.
All right.
And yeah,
Yeah, I
um,
remember when the video came out for it. I just ended up like keeping it on repeat. I thought it was just so good. You know, visually the video was great, but the song was just so good, and it just really, really hooked me into them. Between obviously Mindfuzz and then you had Quarters and you had Paper Mache, which I never got into at the time. I think it was more the hard rock and stuff I was a fan of. You know, it wasn't until I got into Gamma Knife, into Nonagon, then I started looking back on their back catalogue, and then I realised how good Oddments was. You know,
yeah,
it took me a while to get properly into them, but once I did, man, there's no going back. You know.
yeah, dude. Like it was such a. I mean, like sometimes I wish I could just go back in time to when I first discovered King Gizzard and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
re-experience that. I
yeah.
mean, because it was just like I was just beside myself. I was like, these guys, how do you have the time? And how are these guys like for the most part younger than I am?
Yeah.
Like it just made me feel so
It's
unaccomplished. Um,
literally like opening the door.
yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
dude, it totally was. And like my first my first foray into King Giz was Polygon Dwanaland. So Crumbling Castle
Oh,
was the first song that I heard.
oh wow. Yeah.
Um, and just going into that, going into Polygon Dwanaland, and I mean that was an album that I needed to really chew on for a while to get into,
Okay.
and because like I had this dilemma of like, are they actually good and interesting, or are they just trying to be as weird as possible for the sake of being weird and just
See what
trying to
you're saying.
monetize the weirdness? Turns out they're, and then like I watched a video and I was like, oh wait, no, these guys are really into it, and like
Yeah.
they're just playing what they want to do, and
Yeah.
that just, and once I saw it from that perspective, I was like, all right, they can throw anything at me and I will learn to appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what I mean. It's funny because I mean now compared with what I thought of the band, 3 or 4 years ago, it's completely different. Like back then, anytime I heard something, oh right, okay, and I wouldn't really be that interested. It wasn't until I would really have to keep listening, keep something on repeat to get into it. Whereas now, I listen to anything, and I'm like, basically straight away, I'm like, this is either really good King Gizzard or it's kind of okay King Gizzard. There's never bad King Gizzard. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
But it usually takes me a while to get into something. I find as well, it's not until I hear the full album do I really appreciate the individual singles. The
Yeah.
likes of Rattlesnake. When I first heard that, I wasn't interested in it. I thought, oh, it's just repeating the same word over and over. Then when the album came out, I thought actually it fits in with everything else really well, and it's actually a really, really, really good song. You know, it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's like the full album experience is completely different to a single. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And so Flying Mercantile Banana was that was like really the album that hooked me.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like Rattlesnake is probably my least favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
But I would always listen to it, you know, simply because you had to in order to really experience the magic of melting. And like, and also just it's a hilarious song to me. I mean, just you're writing a song about rattlesnakes that's actually just loads of misinformation. Like, and because like I live in the desert, I've had a few rattlesnake encounters, and they're largely misunderstood creatures. But but it was just such a fun song, and it's just, I mean, like it just gets like my mind changed on Rattlesnake when I saw it played live. I was like, okay, this is legitimately a fun time. And like they don't care that it's, you know, that it's not a, you know, scientific song. It's like,
yeah, it's just a bunch of guys having fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fucking around, and like what an idea. Like, and then Ambrose has got the little clicky thing.
Yeah.
The rattler or whatever you call it.
Adds so much. I can tell you a couple of good Rattlesnake stories. Was first time I saw them was in Glasgow in 2018. I think Rattlesnake was the second or third song they played, and they just started it. They got through the intro, and Stu blew his amp, and it was just unreal because the whole song stopped, and then Joey, of course, starts fucking about, and then I don't know how they got a new amp or something. And then he just carried on. It was so good. And then another time, also in Glasgow, I went to see Mac DeMarco, and when I think I was in the queue to get my jacket or something afterwards, and some guy in the queue just starts shouting "Rattlesnake," like the chorus, and he was a bit in front of me, and the way the queue went, it sort of snaked, you know. And he kept on shouting it. He was obviously drunk. It wasn't until I was close to him in the queue. I was sure if I don't even see, but I've got the fucking Giz.
Oh yeah, the gator.
I was like just pointing at it with the guy, and then we just became buddies, you know, just like that. That's all it takes. My favourite though was last year in Glasgow when they played Rattlesnake again. I was with my friend and his dad, and his dad's in his 40s or something. He just went because his son was going to visit him. And my mate's dad, he's obviously not a big fan of the band, wasn't really aware of them. But I think he went out for a piss and came back when Rattlesnake was playing. But he didn't know the band or anything, but everyone was chanting Rattlesnake, Rattlesnake. But he didn't know the words, so he started chanting Rebel State, Rebel State. Man, it's so good. But that's part of why I love them, you know, because you can just join in, even if you don't know the words. Have a good time.
You know what's wild is I saw Gizzard last year in Central Park in New York, and like I was actually really frustrated that show just with the crowd, because like I was on acid, and I could just tell like the rest of the just there was a lot of negativity in the air, and just like I could just tell it was like a lot of people who had just heard of King Gizzard, and so like it was very much. I realized there was a very steep learning curve for people, because like people are saying play Rattlesnake, and then some girl behind me just starts just yelling, "Yeah, Battlesnake!" Like sort of a hybrid between your friend's dad and the actual thing.
Yeah. At least she was trying, man.
I mean, hey, you could really use a Battlesnake in a Rebel State if you ask me.
that sounds like some sort of concept album that it's just a matter of time before they do something with that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, good God. I mean, with all that they have to play on in real world events, and then combined with their
Oh,
own fantasy, it's
yeah. It's just a matter of time.
yeah. I mean, and that's something that I just it gives me a lot of anxiety, but I also like just sit in awe of just the notion that like the possibilities are literally endless, because they aren't like, I don't see them going anywhere. Like they're good enough
Oh,
friends. They seem to have a good enough working relationship and personal relationship that like they'll have their side projects and whatnot, but like, can you really see Giz ending or like not or going anywhere?
not really, no. I mean, obviously Eric was a surprise leaving the band, but
Mhm.
really, I think unless maybe Stu or Joey were to leave, then it would be sort of a drastic change. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it's awful we're losing Eric, but he's sort of been taking a back seat for a long time. I mean, Paper Mache is credited as nothing, so
Yeah.
it's been sort of coming for a while. But no, I don't see them. I don't think they can stop, man. That's part of why I love them, because I didn't think 5 years ago we'd have as much material as they've released. So who knows what's to come?
Yeah. I mean, they've got, by the end of this year, they'll have 16 full length albums. I mean, 17. I don't understand. Like, I know Willoughby's Beach was technically an EP, but just like
Yeah,
it
I
has the
count it.
length. It has the length of an LP. Why not just call that the first album? Um,
Yeah, I
but
count it. I count it as well.
yeah. Oh, you can't listen to it, or?
No, no, sorry, I count it as an album.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
Uh,
what I say.
yeah. But it was but I mean, I'm just thinking like in the last 5 years, so that's since 2015, that's most of their discography. Like
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
that's literally everything after Mind Fuzz. Like that's Quarters, Nonagon, Paper Mache, and the 5 albums from
yeah.
2017. I mean, we're
I see it as Mind Fuzz being sort of the turning point of the band. I know you could argue that Nonagon was, because that's really when they sort of got famous. But for me, I think maybe because it's the first album I heard, that's where there's sort of Mind Fuzz onwards and there's before. I love it all, but that's the way I sort of view it, if that makes sense. There's before Mind Fuzz and after.
Yeah, well, I mean, because if it weren't for Mind Fuzz, there might not be the Giz verse,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like that. I mean, that definitely was the precursor to the turning point. Uh, you know,
100%. Yeah,
wait, on, but to your point, you could say that is the turning point, because that is when they decided we're going to go in this like really complex
yeah,
themed direction. Uh,
yeah. Whereas
with
before that, they were just sort of making music. Really, there's again with the Gizverse, you see people making all these charts and what links to what, but there's never really much before Mind Fuzz. That is really, I would say, the turning point, to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, because like they definitely were a concept band, right from the get go.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is, it's interesting to think like that they were a concept band even with like 12 bar, just because like what kind of punk or garage band is gonna like do a concept album, like, or have
yeah,
any real theme? Um,
yeah. But then you look at all of a sudden changing to Eyes Like the Sky. That's unlike any other album to me, But
oh,
especially from
completely.
a garage rock band, it's
Yeah.
so out of left field. Yeah,
Yeah, and Augments was just fun because it's like all of their like songs that didn't really fit, um,
yeah,
and basically Gumboot 1.0, and
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Same sort of thing. Yeah,
yeah, um, yeah. I love all the old stuff. Like I consider the old stuff to, like, if we're gonna go with the Gizverse theme, I just consider the old stuff to be like just like little fragments from random points in time in the future, just in time space, that
good way of looking at it.
yeah, and then like beginning with Mind Fuzz and into the rest, like then you can, it sort of gives them context, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah,
but I mean,
it's that's what I really like about it. It's just that I mean, I can like before it was a bit different, but now I can just put on any of their albums and just really enjoy it. You know, before it would take me a bit to get into oddments or float along or whatever. But now, no, I can just enjoy anything, and it's the thing is I never get tired of them either. You know, I
mhm.
can listen to them 100 times and it's still just as good as when I first heard it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. That's just something that kind of blows my mind. You know, just on a daily basis, I'm just like, what do I want to listen to? And I just go down to the K section. And the problem is, like, there are a lot of bands that begin with K that I really love. Like,
Yeah.
King Gizzard, obviously, Krongbin, Kikagaku Moyo, Kesha. Like, it's just everybody. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just lost in the Ks. And then I keep finding myself, going back to King Gizzard because, like, just below, because they're right below Krongbin and just
Right.
above Leah Senior. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's almost annoying.
Are you into King Crimson at all?
People have been telling me I need to get into them, and I just have not listened yet.
Ah, man, do yourself a favor.
Just
Just you can't go wrong with their first album, but Red is my favorite. It's like 5 tracks, but it's just prog rock goodness, and you'll love it. Just
yeah,
listen to either of those.
yeah. It's a long time coming. I'll be doing some road trips soon, so
Oh well.
yeah, that'll be good for that.
Yeah,
um,
too right.
yeah, but back to Eric leaving. What was like what went through your mind when you first heard the news, and like how have your views changed, if
Well,
at all, since?
well, first of all, when it was the picture that I saw with the post, I got a notification or whatever, and I obviously thought the worst, when I saw just this picture with bad news. Oh, and then yeah, yeah, it was. I know it's for the better that he's wanting to focus more on Flightless or whatever,
Mhm.
but like I say, he's been taking a backseat, and I know Cavs has been doing a lot of the drumming for quite a while now, so it's hard to see if it'll make a big difference. I think live is where we'll find out because are they going to film, have someone, take the seat, or is Cavs going to do it all? That's what I'm really most curious about to see what they'll do live. But like I say, it's the studio music is what I listen to the most, even though I've done all this bootleg stuff. But
Mhm.
it's I'll be interested to see what happens there. But if the new tracks or anything go by, I think I'll survive without him. It's don't get me wrong, I love him, but it still sounds the same. If you know what I mean, it still sounds the same as it has before the drumming, at least. But like I say, it'll be interesting to see what happens live.
Yeah, I mean, I've been toying with the idea that they will get a new live drummer,
Yeah.
and like maybe that would just be Cavs' fiance, Amy Finlay of
Oh yeah, of
Stonefield.
course. Yeah.
But at the same time, that'll be a lot to throw in your significant other. Just be like, hey, learn all of my songs, like.
Yeah. But it's not like that. It's introducing a new member to this band that everyone, so many people love each member, and there's all these memes and everything. So yeah, I think even introducing a new member to the band just now is quite a big thing. I don't think it's an easy seat to fill just now.
Yeah, it's but like other thoughts I've had on it is like maybe this is just King Gizzard is always going to be changing something. Like that's what they've made a habit of doing every time that they're releasing anything, and they don't really hold on to things of the past that much.
Yeah.
I mean, like after the Cy Boogie video and single premiere, they just gave away the all the props from the music video. Like they're just like, it's taking up space, you can have it. And but like, and obviously when I heard that Eric, something happened to Eric, same thing. I was just like, fuck, did he die? And my first thought was just like, this is where we all realized, this is where we learned that Eric was the glue holding the whole thing together.
Yeah, that's
and and then thank God he's alive, and just focusing on Flightless because like what I have a feeling he's going to do is like, you know, Eric is a genius in his own right, and he's not. It's not like he's going to just stop working. Like, it's not like the work was just too much. It's that
Yeah,
he needs to budget his time better, and he realized that. And it's just like, if we want to actually make Flightless like a legitimate, like
yeah,
a profitable label, but also a label, and this is just me projecting, but like also a label that invests in artists that the owners, legitimately love. Like, we got to be that mega love label, you know?
yeah. Well, that's it. I think it's he's taken a very brave step in taking a step back because, like you say, yeah, they're growing, and obviously with the constant touring, the constant fucking output they do, there's no way he can do that and manage the label in a way you're saying to keep producing all this talent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was either the band or the label really, and he's made his choice, and I'm sure we'll all live with it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't see any negatives to it, at
No,
this point, just because, like, if not for Flightless, we wouldn't have this much King Gizzard, and that always, and I'm pretty confident that that always will be the quintessential Flightless band,
oh, 100%,
just
100%.
obviously, um, so yeah, I just think that there's a good possibility that that more bands are going to come to the label, that in some way the label will, Flightless will do significantly great things, and I have
Yeah,
no idea what that might be.
yeah, and that's quite exciting. That it's just the not knowing of what's to come because pretty much everything on Flightless is gold. Everything I listen to, every artist I love. It's I don't know if it's just what it is, but it's either they've got great taste on the artists they pick, or it's just the name Flightless. But there's something about their label that's just brilliant. Every artist on there is great.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've listened to a few of the artists, obviously, you know, King Gizzard, Stonefield, Leah Senior, Tropical Fuckstorm, and Murlocs, Beans, all, you know, a lot of them there, but there's still a whole bunch that I haven't really gotten into.
Okay.
Like Grace Cummings. I listened to her most recent album once through, and I thought it was good, and I never went back to it. Um, and I'm sure there are a whole bunch. I mean, like, Orb, Traffic Island, like, those are also bands that I haven't really explored that deeply.
All right. Okay.
Like, I saw Orb live last year on tour, and they didn't really do much for me live.
Okay.
But then when I saw Chunky Shrapnel, I was like, wait, this Zach guy is fantastic. Like, I love
But
everything
yeah.
about this dude. I'm just like,
Hmm.
why
Well,
doesn't,
his
yeah,
his By I love, or particularly the first one. I mean, I like them all, but yeah, his Traffic Island is so much different. And the first island, Nature Strip by Traffic Island, that's a really good album. I really like that one. But the second one, so much different. I've not got into it. I don't know if that's the way he's going to take it. It's going to be a bit more experimental or what. But the first album, Nature Strip, was really, really good. I'd like more of that.
yeah.
But it's good to see someone developing their sound and changing it, which is okay. But like I say, it's just not exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah. I don't know. And I don't know if you feel this as much as I do, but like, so like I just turned 30, and a lot of these Flightless bands are, around like my age. I don't,
Yeah,
I can't tell what age you are.
26. I think.
Okay, yeah. So around our age is
Yeah,
as where all these bands are, and like there are so many different changes that you go through, like through your 20s and early 30s, from what I've been told. Um, that like it's just fascinating to me to hear like how all these bands develop
yeah,
in their sound, because like I don't think there's any there's any coincidence that it also has to do with how old they are, um
yeah, yeah.
and just how what feels right to them. And yeah, I just love watching uh musicians develop into like really interesting acts.
Yeah, I the one thing that it's sort of similar. I was thinking about was Mick Jagger said. I think he said if he was 40 and still singing Satisfaction, he would kill himself. And look at him now; he's almost 80. You know, so I like to think that when Stu's 80, he's still playing Rattlesnake. But who knows?
I mean, they cut back significantly on Rattlesnake last year.
Yeah. I think they're sick of it. Yeah.
I mean, Joey once introduced it as the most annoying song in the world, or most annoying song ever written.
Oh, that says it all. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just so cool that they have so many different songs, and like I honestly didn't mind that I didn't hear Rattlesnake last year.
All right.
It would have been nice to hear it once, but I left fulfilled because I had heard them play the Horology suite, and that was just, I mean, that is such a polymetric suite, just in how those songs are written, that when they're played live, it has so much more depth than even Crumbling Castle or The Fourth Color, in my opinion.
Yeah. 100%.
Just because there are so many other, whereas Crumbling Castle and Fourth Color, it's way more hard rock,
Mm-hmm.
like there's way more progression with.
I sort of see it like Crumbling Castle, Rattlesnake. They could play that with their eyes closed, but the likes of the suite and that, they would actually have to think about it, and that makes the performance a bit better because they're not just playing, they're actually thinking about what they're doing, they're having a good time, they're wanting to put on a good show, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know what you mean. It's good for them to have some variety in their songs.
Yeah, it's just such a different sonic experience from what I was expecting, which I guess goes into you should never expect anything when you go to a show, but yeah, I mean it was just so cool to see how fresh they're able to keep their surprises.
Yeah, man. Well, when I like I said, I followed them for 3 shows last year, and on the last night in Manchester, it was completely different because you had Cookie doing Down Sync for a start, which was a highlight for me.
Yeah.
Also had Cutthroat Boogie, man. Unreal, man, from Ambrose.
Yeah, Cutthroat might be that's another one of my favorite Ambrose songs, because it's just sheer, I just love it. Like,
I'm surprised they don't play it more often. Like that's stomper, But I think it's like we were saying, it's from the early stuff that not everyone listens to. Like say, I think a lot of people are getting into them more now, so they're used to these newer songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because then you get people like us that enjoy the old stuff. When you hear it live, it's unreal, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Just like there's been a lot of shit talk about the news, about the songs that have come out from the new album so far. Like on the probably on Reddit. I don't go on there, but like on the Facebook groups, there's been some pretty shitty hot takes in my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm just like, just try, like it's always worked out. Like remember when everybody hated Sketches? Like when Sketches was the butt of every joke, like all of a sudden Eric was able to have a breather for a minute. Like it was
everyone loves it.
And I'm just like, Sketches is obviously a great album. Just like at this point, how can you not just trust them and just fucking put on that blindfold, let them take you with them,
Yeah, it's like I always think about in the future is what will people in 50 years think of King Gizzard now? And I mean, Led Zeppelin famously, their first album got panned by like Rolling Stone and stuff. People hated it. But then you look back on it now and it's absolutely amazing. But I don't get how people can make a snap judgment like that, Fair enough, I might not be interested in the song at first, but once I keep listening to it, I get really into it. But it's much the same. They can't go wrong, man.
Yeah, and like admittedly, an album that I still have yet to fully get into is Fishing for Fishies.
Okay.
Like I love the concept of the album, and there are some songs on it that I think are just tremendous, and I love them. But in terms of that, like that might be my least favorite Giz album, just because it doesn't,
Okay.
Tug at me that much. That said, like, when they play the Bird Song live, or this thing, like or shit, I got to see Akron live, and I mean,
Oh man.
those songs are just great.
Yeah. But
And
listening to it live is completely different to the studio. That's the thing,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a different experience.
It's weird because I really like Fishing Fishes. I've listened to it 100 times, but I couldn't tell you the names of all the songs on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can put it on and just listen to it, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, I couldn't name every song of it. But it's a good album. I like it.
So the thing is, like, I know it's a good album, and I love how it does just sort of take you on, like this floaty journey, like down a river, basically,
Yeah.
without being the river itself. But like, because obviously Fishing for Fishies is very much an establishing shot in a way. Like if you're going to use like cinematography lingo for this, like it's just a great establisher for the beginning of the album. Like, yeah, we're just fishing for fishies, floating down, and just enjoying that soothing harmonica and acoustic guitar, and then it just ends with Psy Boogie,
Like electro thing,
yeah, and which is and just the whole way the album sounds as it progresses. It honestly makes sense that you wouldn't be able to pick out individual songs just because of just how seamlessly it flows.
Yeah, and it flows really well, but it's also very varied. Like you say, it's acoustic at the start and it's very electro at the end. That's just why I love them, because you never know what you're getting. Everything is different. Every album's different.
Yeah.
You'll probably be the same, but when I try to recommend a band to people, they'll say, "Oh yeah, what kind of music do they play?" It's, well, what are you into? And it's so many genres, and that's what I love about them, because there's no band like them. They're just everything's different.
Yeah, and also, and another thing that I've just realized, just in trying to get my friends to listen to them, or at least give them the a chance, is just that, like, you're not going to be able to convince anybody to listen to them if they're not willing themselves to like really just take that dive and be like, hey, this is an interesting change in your personality. Like, maybe I should see what that's all about. Like, it's never like that's never been the approach that my friends have taken with trying to listen to them. They're just like, all right, at best, it's like, what album would you recommend, or like, what song should I listen to? I'm just like, oh man, it's so subjective.
Well, yeah, that's just it. It's so tough to nail down like what to recommend to people. So I just always, like I said, Mindfuzz was the one that got me into them, so I usually recommend that. If you get into that, or Nonagon, really, either of those, if you get into it, then I think you can enjoy everything else, if that makes sense. They're good starting points.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, and some people, like, they want the like the softer stuff or jazzier, and I'll be like, yeah, Sketches, because that is a lot of people do really like that on first listen.
My
that's
a good album.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably my parents' favorite album, if they had to pick one, and if I gave them the title of it. But yeah, like but like one time I recommended Paper Mache Dream Balloon to somebody, and she listened to that, and she's like, yeah, this is really good. And then she's like, yeah, check out, another album now. And then she threw on, like, Murder of the Universe, or she saw Murder of the Universe. She was just like, okay, I don't know if I like this band. Like, it's just...
it's hard to believe they're the same band.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Yeah. That's exactly, that's why I love them, And I had actually the exact same thing. I told someone to listen to Paper Mache, and she did. And then she's like, "Oh, what else should I listen to?" Well, she enjoyed that, but I ended up saying Fishies, and she enjoyed that as well. So we'll see. I don't know what to recommend next. Really, after that, maybe Quarters, maybe Sketches. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, Quarters is a good one. Although I kind of fucked it up for my friend. like I was telling him about Quarters, and I was just like, yeah, and it's called Quarters because it's 4 songs, they're all the same length. And he was just like, oh fuck, it's one of these gimmicks, okay. And so like that
Yeah,
just ruined the river for him.
yeah,
And like he wasn't able to give it all like an earnest listen.
yeah.
um
It's in some ways I feel it's better just to let people figure out for themselves, because I'm the same. If I recommend something to someone, I don't just say listen to this album. I end up telling them the history of the album and every detail about how the Gizzverse works, and then
yeah,
put them off the album. Like, they're not interested.
yeah, exactly. It's just like I don't know. It seems very easy for Gizheads to just get kind of lost in the
Yeah,
Gizverse and just get lost in your own world, because it's just like, that's the thing. Like when you become a super fan, like it's because the music hit you on such a level that it's just impossible to fully explain. Hence why I have
yeah,
this podcast and I still haven't found the fucking answer.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
It's it's I mean, I often think about it as, I think it's probably been said before, but because they're basically just a modern day Grateful Dead or Pink Floyd or something. They have these massive fan bases that people know about, and but you know, you get a Deadhead, you know, or you know, you get these people who are part of this cult, which
mhm.
we basically are. You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing that there are these fan bases, and the people are so nice. You know, like I say, when I went on the tour last year and followed them around, I went solo, and apart from the first night, I just ended up chatting to people, you know, other good heads, and I met a guy again with a gator tattoo, and we just hit it off. You know, we just made good friends, and
Yeah.
it's so cool how there's this community. You know, it's I've never heard of anything like this to any other band I've ever seen. You know,
Dude, I mean, like the Grateful Dead is the closest you can come.
yeah,
You could argue that the King Gizzard isn't quite at that level of like,
yeah,
camaraderie, simply because they haven't been around for 20 years.
yeah.
But I mean, the Dead are just a fascinating band, and just in terms of how you let something grow organically. Um,
Yeah.
and
Oh man, yeah. It's unreal. Again, to bring it back, you know, they had the whole, they were taper friendly, just like Giz. You know, they had sections of the crowd where people could bring their own equipment and record.
yeah,
That's again why
and they had
this.
Shakedown Street. The
Yeah, man,
like
can't go wrong.
just like, unsanctioned yet sort of sanctioned merch. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
because they were the first band that actually had merch because it was made by the fans. Like they were just
yeah.
like,
They just
yeah,
want to show
you're
their
in.
support.
Yeah, and it was just
You're a
like,
deadhead. I'm a deadhead. Yeah,
I mean, and
yeah,
it created just a really beautiful community. And like I keep talking about this book on this podcast, but it's called Everything I Know About Business I Learned from the Grateful Dead, and they talk about just how like important it is, if you want a good business, for it to be something that people legitimately love, and that it's something that is basically symbiotic. You want to create that
okay,
symbiotic relationship, and um, and just by having people like creating these spaces for people just to gather and meet and like be one with each other,
a
it's
safe
sick.
space. Yeah, yeah.
And like and what I learned is that there were a lot of people who would continue, you know, like like being pen pals with people
Oh
that they
wow.
met at shows, and like so they'd be, sending each other postcards and stuff, and then internet comes around in the 80s and they start emailing each other, and like
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're like, the Dead was one of the first bands that had like an email mailing list.
All
um
right.
and
Oh wow.
yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating how all that
Yeah.
plays out.
It's just again, it's just the community is just it's unreal, man. Um, like I say, it's just amazing that this I've not heard of it happening with another modern band really. Like obviously there's fans for every band, but I've never heard of there being these communities for any other band just now that are all friendly. You know, everyone's, especially when I think if someone hears the name King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, they're probably going to think, oh, it's some crazy metal band. But actually, everyone's really nice. You know, everyone gets together, has a good time. It's unreal. It's just the coolest thing.
Yeah, well, and also like metalheads a lot of the time are some of the nicest people you're ever going to meet.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's like they worked out all of their rage with the music, and then all of a sudden there's like, ha, we got it all out of our system. Let's hang.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. We're all here for the same thing. We're all here to enjoy the music,
yeah.
Yeah.
And just, whatever it brings. But I think we'll get to wrapping up pretty soon. But before I let you go, just, what's something that you've been sort of thinking about, chewing on that that's Giz related that we haven't talked about yet? Or just music related. It doesn't have to be Giz.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I say, just I don't know why I always have this thing of thinking of the future and how they're going to be looked at in a couple of years, And it's such a weird thing to think about, obviously, but I genuinely think that they're going to be looked back on as this, obviously this cult, but this big band had a big impact, did a ton of great things, and then people might then look into them and then realize, oh, actually, there's the Murlocs, there's so on. There's all these great bands, so it's not just this one really good band. There's so much that goes with the band. But then on another level, you've got the fans. You've got all these nice people. It all works together so well. It's just, I don't know why, I just always think about in the future looking back and how they're going to be perceived. And it's a weird to think about, but I think it's going to be good. It's going to be a good thing.
I don't see how it couldn't be. Obviously, yeah. But like, that's something that I love about King Gizzard is that they do such a good job of promoting their friends and like legitimately like enjoying what their friends are doing artistically. And, I mean, it's
just so they're really down to earth guys. That's what I really like about them. In a way, they just don't really care about like bootlegging. And I remember years ago they shared a link on their Facebook page to a torrent of their discography. They just don't care. They're just having a good time and enjoying it while it lasts.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what was it in Spain or Italy last year? Eric saw like a bootleg merch guy outside.
Oh yeah.
He talked him down from 15 euros to 10.
Yeah, the guy didn't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's just like they just have such a nuanced approach to their creativity and just how to live that I just think it's something that we can all aspire to.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, like I say, and it's quite inspiring as well to know that even in this day of age of Spotify and all these major companies, that people can still put a band together, make their own label, and make it quite big. It's amazing it still works. I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It makes you question like the whole concept of marketing. Like let the product advertise itself. Like it's like if the product is good, people will buy it. My favorite comedian Doug Stanhope has of course you do, Scotland.
Yeah.
He's just like hey, by applause, who here loves drugs? Everybody applauds. Ever see him advertised? Like
that's a good point. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. Anyway, Earl, Boogieman Sam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is a really fun conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Hopefully do it again soon.
Yeah, and look forward to the future bootlegs.
Oh, it won't be too far away.
All right. Take it easy.
Thanks a lot, man. Cheers.